Welcome back. All right. So as I continue my look at top prospects in the 2025 NHL entry draft, we get to Aitcheson, a defenseman standing 6'1" or 185 centimeters if you speak metric, 198 pounds or 90 kilos if you're on the island of metric. But either way, Kashan is a player that there was a lot of talk about. So I did the mock draft a few days ago, and there were people like, no, Aitcheson's got to go higher. And Aitcheson and other mock drafts, I've seen him being taken as high as 11, or Pittsburgh's being taken. So I was like, all right, I got to talk about this player. Clearly one of those prospects who's moved up the board. And I'm going to say this just off the cuff a little bit. I think this year's draft's going to be better than people give it credit for. I think this year's prospects are going to turn out to be better players than a lot of people have talked about this year. There's been a lot of talk about how weak this draft is. I think there's some good players here. That being said, Aitcheson opinions are all over. He's number 18 on Elite Prospects list. He's number 21 on the Hockey Prospect list. Number 14 on Bob McKenzie's list. Number 16 on Craig Button's list. NHL Central Scouting moved him up from 15th to 9th on their North American skaters list from mid-season until the end of season. So he moved up, and he's been moving up. So some of these rankings might very well be a little bit out of date. But I always wonder, like, when somebody has a really strong second half of the season, does that mean they're that overrated, or what is it? So looking at his numbers, playing for the Barrie Colts of the OHL last year, 64 games, 8 goals, 31 assists, 39 points, 126 penalty minutes. He's going to be in the box. This year, 64 games, 26 goals, 33 assists, 59 points, and he cut his penalty minutes down to 88 penalty minutes. And that's one of the things that I saw being mentioned, that he wasn't running around the ice so much. He was much more focused. And it does sound like he's going to be a big, heavy-hitting defenseman. The Hockey News, the comparison they use, and I don't like to use comparisons, but I thought, so who does he project to be at the NHL level? And they put Jacob Trouba's name down. So I would say Jacob Trouba with maybe some more offensive upside, but it depends on who you ask about whether or not his offense at the OHL level will translate to the National Hockey League. It doesn't always. We have seen numerous players tear it up in the CHL over the years, and then at the NHL level, they're just not offensively minded players. Now, he's an excellent puck handler, so that projects well. Very, very good hands. He has a good shot and some good offensive instincts. Sometimes his exit passes leave a little bit to be desired. That is one knock I saw against him, but there really isn't that much in terms of any kind of criticism towards him. So I'm a little bit surprised that he has been rated lower than a lot of the other players I've already talked about for this year's draft. And it may be that people look at his overall game and say he's great at this level, but will it work in the National Hockey League, right? So he plays a smarter game this year, and that's along the lines of not running around the ice and taking bad penalties kind of thing. Playing better in systems kind of idea for him there. He's physical and he throws heavy hits. That's where the Jacob Trouba comparison comes in. And with the amount of hits that he throws, he will probably be a defenseman at the NHL level that people may not like his hits, unless he's on your team, in which case you will love his hits. He's not an elite skater, but that seems to have improved this year, so he doesn't have great acceleration. And so if you combine the occasional turnover on an exit pass with not great acceleration, you can see why teams might be concerned a little bit there, right? You want to make sure that if the guy's going to be turning the puck over, he's going to be quick going back. But I've said this in other prospect videos. I'll say this here as well. I think sometimes that gets overblown a little bit because we're all trying to nitpick as to which player is going to be better than which come draft time. And I'll be doing draft videos this week showing that it really is like playing the lottery when it comes to draft picks. So his stock improved during the season. As I mentioned, he moved up the NHL Central Scouting rankings. There are some that are ranking him in the top 10, and still there are some that don't see it and don't have him maybe within the top 20 or barely within the top 20. So it is one of those times, and I keep saying this in videos on this playlist, it's going to depend on the GM making the decision and what the scouts have told him or what the GM has seen as to whether or not they believe that Aitcheson's game is going to translate at the NHL level. He does seem to have a floor as a third pairing defenseman, but he does have top 4 upside as well. So he's more likely, if you look at the projections, going to be a defensive forward or defensive defenseman who has some offense in his game rather than being an offensive defenseman. So he's not going to be Drew Doughty in terms of the offense, and Drew Doughty in his peak was one of the best in the league at both ends of the ice. Still pretty good just in general, but at his peak, Doughty was one of the absolute best. Aitcheson doesn't project to be like that, but he could be one of those physical defensemen that maybe gets 20, 25 points a year. And if he's able to work on and continue to work on his overall penalty taking and drop that down a bit, get a little bit smarter with his game, and just continue that approach that he's already shown this year, who knows how high he might go. Now, Pittsburgh's drafting at 11th, and that's the place where it seems like people think he probably gets drafted. But keep an eye on Philadelphia. They have draft picks 22 and 31, and assuming they take a center at 6, they may want a defenseman. This might be a Philadelphia Flyer template if they're going to look to maybe get a little bit of more Broad Street bully into their game. And with Tocchet behind the bench, that could work. This is the kind of defenseman that I think Tocchet would really like to coach. Vancouver drafting at 15th might be a consideration there as well. I think Vancouver could use a big physical defenseman. I know that they have Willander coming up. I know they have the other Elias Pettersson and other young defensemen, but I don't think you can have too many defensemen in your system. And number 19, St. Louis, maybe the Blues. If he falls that far, maybe the Blues take him there. But it will be interesting to see where he gets taken, because there are some who think he could go in the top 10. So where do you think Aitcheson goes in this year's entry draft? Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.